Yeah, now we want it now. We were just talking about that with the tea. I'm like, I just made this. I didn't make it to not drink it. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for tuning in with us here at MOCHA Talk and Caffeine Dreams. I am your host, Ashley Finley, and I'm super excited to be able to talk with Jade today, who is super interesting. And I'm just reading through the notes. I'm like, there's so much here. I'm like, we're going to get through it all. Don't worry. Like, every single thing. Because I feel like the world needs to know.
Okay.
So, Jade, if you don't mind, just give us kind of like a little elevator pitch about yourself.
Let's see. So I'm Jade. I'm a music therapist. I've been certified for about 4 years. I've moved a lot. What else? I don't know. I hang out sometimes.
I hang out sometimes. I like that.
I'm an introvert. I like to people watch. What else? I don't have a very good elevator pitch for myself.
I think that was a wonderful elevator pitch. It's like, I'm a music therapist, I move around, and I hang out sometimes. Yeah. That's all we really need to know.
I don't even know what that means, but I mean, I guess it's true.
It's true. You exist. You're here. Mm-hmm. Right? No, it's okay. I found myself kind of doing the same on an event I spoke at yesterday, and I was like, hi, I'm Ashley. Sometimes I help people have babies, and I don't know, I'm around. Like, that was like my full intro of myself. It can be hard, but that's why I'm here, right? To like really dig into your business. So I hope you're okay with that.
We'll see.
So tell us about music therapy. Where did this passion come from? How did you get into it?
I was one of those kids that always knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. And in high school, I got really dedicated to the music therapy. And I've always been in music. And music has been there for me very therapeutically throughout my life. And I discovered it somewhere, I think in some kind of news article about a local music therapist in the area back in Wisconsin where I lived.
Okay.
And it was just I don't know, I wanted to do something music, but I didn't want to kind of ruin a passion of mine at the same time. Like I'm a composer, so I wanted to be a composer, but then having a deadline and the idea of composing other pieces for other people's ideas and not being able to commission your own and kind of like ruins it a little bit. So it's like, how do I take something that I really love, but then also like a skill that I'm good at and combine it? And music therapy ended up being the answer.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, and then I went through college and came out here for my internship, and now I work out here.
And now you're here.
Yeah, and then your other part of the question, what is music therapy? So, music therapy is scientific based, so it's not exactly sound therapy or like sound bath, stuff like that. It's kind of the unresearched, non-proven area of music and all that stuff. Music therapy is more, it can be behavioral based, it can be educational based. We can work in a lot of different settings. Okay. So the place that I work is inpatient psych, so crisis inpatient psych. So people who relapse or attempt suicide or feel like they might attempt suicide, people who need to detox, people who are off their medications and are having a psychotic break, cause a scene, get arrested, things like that. And they need to just be somewhere for like a week or two to just kind of stabilize to go back out or to go to a different permanent treatment or more a long-term rehab, something like that. And so what I do with music therapy is a lot of lyric analysis. So talking about what does this song mean? How does it relate to you? Sometimes we rewrite the words to make it more personal to their journey so they can kind of overcome some of their own personal things. Because sometimes it's easier to talk about somebody else, right? Instead of my own personal experience. Let's talk about this person's suicidal ideation and the proof in the song and what kind of feelings go around that. What advice would you give them? And it's kind of a way to
Wow.
talk about stuff without being so direct.
Right.
I also do experiential. Music therapy can be experiential.
Okay.
Sometimes I just sing at them. Like, let's just hang out and play music for a little while. Give them drums to play. Sometimes it's meditation, guiding through them through meditation, trying to engage their imagination a little bit, and emotion. A lot of people are in that state, kind of are afraid to feel, and so music kind of draws that emotion out. Yeah, all different. I could talk for the next 3 hours about it.
No, this is amazing. And it seems like, one, not only is it like something that's really versatile and again, like how we were talking about, like being able to shift and evolve and transition, right? But it also seems like something that can, like, hearing you talk about it, I'm having like a kind of like a cathartic response, you know, like especially hearing you talk about like what you were saying, like with lyric analysis is something I'm like thinking in my head. Like, there's so many songs that I have a really visceral response to, and sometimes I know why that is. Like, I was showing you those TikToks, right? Like about the Blackbird song, and like having someone to be able, I think, to explore with like that with, especially if you're a person who is uh dealing with or overcoming something, whether that be like mental illness or whatever, I think that must be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, music activates almost the whole brain. It's one of the only things on earth that does that to a human. And it also bypasses the frontal lobe, which is where our cognitive thoughts are the voice inside of our head. That's the frontal lobe. And it goes right to the thalamus, which is where memory and emotion are stored. So that's why we can instantly feel something, instantly be somewhere else because of a song. Same way with smell. Smell does the same thing. And then because it lights up the whole brain, it's more of a reaction in the brain. It targets the social skills, the emotion center, the memory, motor function, social, I think I said social skills already, but spatial reasoning, time reasoning, like almost the whole brain lights up, language. And it accesses all of those different parts, which means memories of that time with that song are stored in multiple places or trigger multiple neurons. So it's even more of a powerful thing.
Yeah, that reminds me of how when you hear people say, like, oh, this song is like on the soundtrack to my life or whatever, like that's like something that they're saying is like, this is important to me. I can remember exactly what happens in life. Like I imagine that that's probably the science behind it.
Yeah, and there's actually a music therapy intervention called life soundtracks. Where what song represents your childhood or sections of your childhood by different songs, and where you are now, where do you want to go in the future, and listening to the album of your life.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you again about this like the whole time, but I do want to like get to some of the other really amazing things. One thing, Jade, that I wanted to kind of highlight, right? Because this project or this podcast is meant to kind of uplift and highlight like the differences in our community and like the differences that make, I would say, like Salt Lake City specifically so vibrant, like, and so we've talked to a lot of different types of people, but I want, if you're comfortable with it, again, I said we're a consent-based podcast. I would love for you to talk to us a little bit about your identity as a person who is non-binary, or how that kind of ebbs and flows.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually just recently trying the they them.
Okay.
For a long time, I just kind of felt like, is that really my place to say? Which is a wildly ridiculous thing to think. But does it truly matter to me, what pronoun is? And, just kind of such gray area to me anyway that it's like, why do I want to put a term to it, you
Right.
know? But
Right.
I don't know. I'm trying it out the last like 2 years,
Okay.
a year and a half, and it's going pretty good. It's just hard because I look very feminine.
Mhm.
No
Mhm.
matter what I do, I could wear a full 3-piece suit, and they'd be like, "Oh, honey, how you doing?" You know, like
Right.
I'm just so obscurely feminine.
Yeah.
And so it's also kind of getting over that assumption part of it, and trying to be more visible in different
Mhm.
ways. And
Mm.
um, but it was something that I've always known, you
Mm.
know, as even as a little kid. It's something that it was hard to put into terms. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand about the LGBTQ world, is that there's a lot of discovering that this is a weird feeling,
Mm.
or that this is not a normal thing to
Right.
think about yourself or to feel. Because when you're a kid, you're just inside your own head all the time. You're like, oh, that's fine. This is not, everybody feels this way. There's no
Right.
words for it because
Right.
it's just human existence. And then as you grow up, you're like, oh, there's good words for that. There's bad words for that. There's all these projections and assumptions and expectations around all of those words. And
Right.
yeah, it's kind of figuring
Oh.
out what labels you want to accept, what labels you don't want to accept, what label even fits right.
Mhm.
And can be a lifelong journey sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just plugging away a little by little at it.
I love that, and I love what you said, and I want to say it again because I think that this is uh really beautiful the way that you kind of put it to words when you said like there's when you're young there's this thing that you're trying to like you don't have the words for, right?
Mhm.
Like it's just who you are. And I often think about that in a lot of different facets of our identities, right? And like how they kind of develop. But like what would a world look like, Jade, for you, right? Or to you when the babies, I call everyone younger than me, like younger than like 27 a baby, but the kids were allowed to just experience their life without the words.
Mhm. I don't know. That would be very interesting. Because on one hand, they'd feel less judged. There'd be more exploration, more freedom to
Mhm.
explore that. But sometimes I feel like terms are important. Like the
Mm.
first time I discovered the word bisexual,
Mm.
I was like, oh, that's what I am. Because sometimes there are labels out there that matter.
Right.
You want to be proud of a certain label, but then
Right.
other times it's a wall in front of you.
Mm.
It's a hindrance. It's a reason for shame. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
No, that's so true. Like we can hold two truths, right?
Mhm.
We can say that, like you said, in some ways labels and some labels can be harmful, and in other ways they can be empowering and help us understand more thoroughly
Mhm.
who we are, who the people we are around are. I really resonate with that. You know, as a black woman, right?
Mhm.
So there's a label right there, right? But when I first heard the term intersectionality,
Mhm.
um, which was a term that was kind of introduced into mainstream society in, I believe, the 80s, um, by a black like sociologist, and I believe her name is Kimberly Crenshaw. Um, but when I first heard that term, it opened up like a whole world to me about who I could be as Ashley Finley, right? Like I could be this black um this black woman who had all of these different facets to her, and also not only all of these different facets, right? Like but could like all of these different issues affected me, and each of them in different ways, right? So like I'm a black woman. Okay, I'm a black fat woman. I'm a black fat educated woman or whatever,
Mhm.
like they just keep going. And because of those those intersections of my identity, I see the world and I experience the world in a different place. And I felt in different ways. And I felt really validated by that term. And I know like people get really annoyed sometimes with like terminology that comes from like academia, right? Like it can get a little bit pretentious. We know. We know. But I think it's beautiful to be able to see the world open to you, right? In a way that maybe you hadn't seen before.
Yeah, and it's kind of upsetting to see, the kids or people who've grown up with those labels, that there's kind of this feeling that labels are given to you.
Mm.
You're given a label, but that's not how words should be used.
Mm-hmm.
We find the little rocks on the beach that we like, that are shiny, and we collect them, right? We collect the labels that are important to us.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of that culture around words, around labels.
Yeah. Ooh, Jade, I'm giving you snaps because you're just like, I don't know. You have like this very beautiful way of kind of explaining these things and helping, I will say like me, right, in this conversation, like helping me experience what we're talking about. And so I just want to say, you're giving me chills.
Music therapist.
Yeah, okay, so music therapist, I see you've got like a lot of things going on. So you're a photographer, you're in the martial arts. Oh my gosh, tell me more.
I don't know. I really liked martial arts when I was a kid. I never got a whole lot of opportunity to be in it because we kind of grew up poor.
Okay.
But I did have like 1 week of karate once, and I lived off of that memory of karate for months.
I love that. I love that.
And just liking martial arts. I watched kung fu movies, all that stuff, and then as you do, you date somebody who's really passionate about something. You absorb their personality a little bit. We were together for about 7 years.
Wow.
And he was a mixed martial artist guy.
Wow.
And was going through jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, a whole bunch of stuff. And after we separated, I still kept that part because it was very empowering, especially as a woman, going through a lot of stressful and traumatic things.
Right.
Martial arts can empower you to not only use your body, but to appreciate your body as an instrument and not an ornament, right? And so it's just very empowering. And I found, when I moved out here, I found a meetup group for Tai Chi. Okay. And started going there. And he actually just opened up his studio, I want to say in January.
Wow. Okay.
And I've been going there a lot, and it's Shaolin Kung Fu is what I'm focusing on right now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm going to ask you exactly what Shaolin is, but I think of like this band like Hiatus Coyote. They have a song called like Shaolin Monk or something, I think. And like I think of like The Last Dragon, which is like if you see The Last Dragon, that you would understand why that's funny. But tell us more about what Shaolin Kung Fu is.
So Shaolin, there's 2 different types of Shaolin, and I'm not extensively knowledgeable about it, but this is what I understand from my Shifu in this current moment.
Okay.
That there's 2 different types of Shaolin. There's the North style, which is what we study, which is the long fist.
Okay.
So all the forms have these long punches. Okay. And then the short fist is the southern version of Shaolin, which is all these like close range combat things.
Okay.
And Kung Fu deals with a lot of kicking, a lot of splits, jumping, very acrobatic martial arts.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. I guess that would make sense, right? Kung Fu movies, like that's like that is what you see in them, right? Like tons of, like you said, like acrobats and just like kind of really beautiful. I would say like almost like dancer-esque style.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's called a martial art and not like a sport,
right?
Because it is a type of art, right? Our Shifu says every once in a while that it's not a form of self-defense. It can be used as that, but you're supposed to feel it. Everybody performs the forms differently because it's how they interpret it and what they feel while they're doing it, and it definitely is an art form that can be a little flashy sometimes for movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely something that has a philosophy behind it as well.
Yeah.
He also says that kung fu or gong fu translates as hard work, and so you're supposed to push yourself specifically with kung fu.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then you also do Tai Chi.
Mm-hmm.
And before we started recording, I was like, that's like with the people in the parks, right? And it looks like they're kind of like moving imaginary, like sand or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the way to manipulate the chi around you, the energy around you. Yeah, where you hold the yin yang and then you cut it in half, and there's all this things that you're supposed to figure out yourself because it's traditionally taught without speech. And so you're supposed to learn internally what it means to you and kind of explore it yourself in that way. And there are also multiple types of Tai Chi. So I learned the Shaolin branch off of Tai Chi, which is Wudang.
Okay.
Or Wu-Tang, which is the old way to, yeah.
Again, I have all these pop culture references.
Yeah.
Wow, that is so beautiful. I see like kind of a common thread. Like, I feel like you're a very introspective person. And so that a lot of the things that you do or spend your time and energy on are either like these like really beautiful ways of kind of like self-discovering, but also kind of discovering the world around you and also helping people discover their worlds.
Yeah, I want to dedicate everything I do to feeling and to experience and to empower people to experience what their experience is. To not overuse the word experience. But.
No, I think you're right. I think that's an accurate word though. Like I think how powerful the word experience is, right? Like it's like this idea that we're not just kind of going through the motions of life, like, and life is not just like imposing itself on us, but instead that we are like an active participant, right? This is something that I've been thinking about a lot, Jade, as like, they always say like when you hit 30, the whole world is, and so like, that really did happen. I didn't expect it. But I was like, man, these people are just exaggerating. But it's something that I've been thinking about a lot because I think especially in a society, and not to get too deep into like I guess my own personal politics, right? But like a society that favors so much like grind culture and capitalism and just kind of like bypassing your life in order to make money and pay taxes and like it's so powerful and important for us to take a step back, I think. And I guess talking personally, important for me to take a step back and say like, no, this is my life. Like I'm meant to live it, not just to, I guess, just let myself be imposed upon,
Yeah, not just be the wheel in the cog, and not just watch your life like a movie, but to be engaged in it.
And I think that's what like, and I'll be honest, and like, I'm not gonna like be like Jade therapize me, but like I think for a long time that's what I was doing, right? Like there was like a moment in time, I think, especially in my youth and probably before college, where I felt very drunk on the idea of like life, right? And I loved everything and I loved everyone, and every experience was this like beautiful, just amazing, vibrant, colorful, whatever experience, right? And I was like fully in it, And then I think college happened and I had all these expectations of like what I was supposed to be and what that meant for me again as a first generation Black college student, what things I was supposed to uphold, and it just like continued on. But then there was like one day when I woke up and was like, hey, like, I don't have to do that. right? And like now I'm listening to you and I'm like, no, like Jade can do Tai Chi and Jade can be a licensed music therapist and Jade can do Kung Fu and explore all of these different things and aspects of themselves. And they can even say, like, I don't know, today, like my pronouns feel like they, them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like that be okay and be whole just as that, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyways.
Yeah, and that kind of ties in with the label conversation we were having about, you know, we get put of you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to be this, you have to, all these expectations and external pressures, and we kind of forget about our own voice inside and our own labels and our own definition and where we want to go and what's meaningful to us and not to the other people around us.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Beautiful. Do you think that like you have like the words for this thing because you spend a lot of time looking inward, or do you think it's like a mixture of that with your like therapist background? Like,
I don't know. I think a lot of it is the therapy background. I've always just kind of been like this. I was that very serious, quiet, thoughtful child.
I was gonna say, I could see you as like a kid, just like.
I went to one slumber party when I was like 7, and I hated it. I spent the whole time talking with the parents.
Really?
I was like, I don't want to watch this stupid cartoon, and I want to talk about the weather with the parents and the. I was a very serious kid.
I love that.
But yeah, I think it's just the personality that I have, and then also the experiences that I've had. You know, when you experience a certain thing and you lose a certain thing, you realize what you're more grateful for and what you believe in more. You know, when you're challenged a little bit and you survive through that, you can kind of remember, okay, this is actually what I want.
Right.
Kind of helps you prioritize a little bit.
Yeah. I love that. I love what you're saying about, like challenge, right? Like challenge grows us, I think. And I love how you're saying like it focuses us too, right?
And it's painful and it's what we want to avoid, but it's also something that can result in a lot of beauty and a lot of purpose.
Yeah. So you said that you've moved around a lot.
Okay.
Is that like just something kind of in your family history, or is that
we're kind of nomadic a little bit. Yeah, the Merrells are nomadic. I don't know. It's I'm from Iowa.
Okay.
And it just kind of started when my mom got a new job somewhere else. You know, single mom trying to make it somewhere somehow.
Right.
And we ended up moving to Wisconsin, and then from there the job we moved there for wasn't what she was expecting. It wasn't the same pay. It wasn't even the same job title, and it was, you know.
Yeah, like
and
bait and switch.
Yeah. And so she ended up getting into what my grandpa did, which was contract work for nuclear power. And so she was a scheduler, which meant she moved every 6 months somewhere.
Wow.
And so I stayed in Wisconsin to go through high school. So I lived on my own through high school.
Wow.
And then every summer I would go to whatever state she was in. But then it just kind of became about, well, what college do I want to go to? I took a couple years off here and there for, you know, financial reasons, transferring schools, stuff like that. I mean, there's been years where I've filed taxes for 3 different states.
Oh my God.
It's been a lot. And even since I moved to Utah, I've moved every year in the last 5 years that I've lived here.
In a new place.
To a new place. I've had a lot of roommate drama in the last 5 years. But I think I'm at my own place now. I adopted a cat.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about this kitty.
So I think I'm in a place where I can sit for a little while.
Yeah. Take a break.
Yeah.
Rest a bit.
Yeah. Enjoy things.
Yeah, that's really it. Enjoy things and enjoy your kitty and your new space. Can we talk about your photography a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah. So is this something that you've always done, or is this a new venture?
Yeah, it's something that I've always done. Before I wanted to be a music therapist, I wanted to be a photographer for National Geographic, which is still my plan B.
Yeah, it's gonna work out.
Yeah. I know that you can apply for a 3-year contract for as an amateur photographer.
Wow.
You don't make any money, but you also don't spend any money, and they just
Right.
ship you everywhere. So I'm thinking about my student loans are preventing me from doing that, but
I know that struggle.
yeah, I got my first camera when I was, I want to say 8, and it was my mom's old camera. It was a film camera, and we would go out to the parks in Iowa, the fields and stuff, and I would just take, whatever 8-year-old kids take pictures of.
Right. Probably lots of grass.
Yeah, lots of grass, lots of blurry, things that don't make any sense. Yeah, I just kept with it because I think it was kind of a subconscious need to find beauty in the small things because of all the chaos that's happened and that was around me. I think photography gave me that I can make anything beautiful, that feeling, right?
Yeah.
I can take a picture of something and I can remember it forever, and I can be proud of it, and I can remember these small little moments, or that how cool that leaf was, or I think it's just that still kind of shows in my style of photography. I'm very much a texture photographer.
Okay, that's amazing. I can, what was it? Say it again. I can make anything beautiful. Oh,
it's
so
out there.
Good. So good. I don't know. So I'm partial. I won't say partially. One of the things I do, because we live in like a gig economy, right? And so there's like all of these millions of things. But one of the things I do is I'm a poet. And so I just love like hearing words and hearing the way people say words, and so that if you are wondering why I'm obsessed with like taking kind of like a snapshot of something that I heard you say, it's because of that. It sounds like poetry.
Thank you.
I can make anything beautiful. Gosh. That should be your next thing. You should just become a poet, okay?
I'm working. That's one of my things that it's on the to-do list.
Yes. Yes. Let's connect. Oh my gosh. So, I mean, we've talked about so much. I am so kind of like, I'm just like really grateful for this opportunity to talk to you and to hear your perspective and your experience, and again, the way you just kind of say poetry, just like talking, right? But I also am curious. So you're in Utah now. You've been here for 5 years. This community, this is part of your community. What do you hope to see for Utah?
Open-mindedness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's very white bread here. It's very everybody, the same note, same tone, same houses. And then there's the anti-culture of just 100% individuality. There's such a counterculture here. And I kind of wish to see people get together a little bit more.
Yeah.
Kind of share a little bit of their wisdoms to each other, and I don't know, not be so separated.
Yeah.
It's very separated here.
Yeah, we are.
There's a lot of expectation here.
Tell me about it. There's so much expectation and separation, and I think what you said is really accurate. I was kind of talking to somebody about this, like you said, like there's a very kind of thick and heavy pervasive culture, right? And then the folks who don't feel welcomed or in line with that culture, like you said, they like go and they make this very strong like anti-culture. And so what does that mean for folks who either grow up here, live here, move here, who are somewhere in the middle, who are like, I'm just doing me, like,
Yeah. I don't know. It makes it hard to fit in a category here.
Mhm.
You know, there's a lot of categories here,
Mm.
and it's just kind of a bummer. I don't know how else to explain it. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, and being from out of state, it's kind of hard to put yourself into the community because it seems like everybody here is, you know, they have all the friends that they have, and they
Mhm.
already have excess amount of family and friends
Yeah.
and things to do, and which has not been my experience with all the moving that I've done. You know,
Yeah.
usually people are like, "Oh, you're interesting. Tell me everything about what snow looks like." You
Right.
know, tell me
I
everything about what the desert's like.
I love that.
And Utah is just, everybody's so busy here. They're
I
too busy, they can't be bothered.
Oh, I agree. I agree with that. And it's so, you're right. Like, I go to other places and I say, like, now, I'm like, in even like a place like New York, or like, I go back to California, or I go to Chicago or wherever, and folks are like, "What? You're from Utah? That's
Mhm.
interesting. Like, let's talk about that because I
Mhm.
heard some stuff." Or, like,
Mhm.
or I've seen pictures on calendars because, they see like the arches,
Oh
like
yeah.
the
Mhm.
Moab. How is that? And then, like, even further, like, how is that as a transplant there?
Mhm.
Like, how'd you go from LA to Salt Lake City, and what's
Mhm.
kept you there? And you find these ways of like connecting with folks, but you're right. The conversation seems to just kind of stop here sometimes. Like,
Mhm.
oh, you're from blah blah blah. Oh, you're here now? Okay, you're here
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and
Like,
there's such a beautiful uh like an underworld almost of Salt Lake. Of There's all of
mm,
these um there's a huge refugee population here compared to a lot of places, and
mm-hmm.
yet Salt Lake City is known as like Mormon capital. Like,
Yes.
why aren't we known for more things?
Why aren't
There's
we?
so much going on here, and we're just, everything is just
Under
covered
the
up under the
radar.
rug. Yeah.
Why aren't we known for more things? And
Mhm.
also, why doesn't the community, I think, as a whole, like the large community,
Mhm.
like open, open and kind of, um, I don't know how to say it, like, because I don't want it to seem like I'm saying like, why doesn't the community assimilate those smaller communities?
Mhm.
That's not what I'm saying. It's like, why aren't we interacting with each
Mhm.
other in
Sharing. Mhm.
authentic positive ways? It's
Mhm.
like we're interacting with each other, especially now, out of like really charged and sometimes hurtful
Mhm.
ways, you know?
Yeah.
Um
That, you know, that kind of reminds me of how Mississippi was. We were kind of talking about that, of just
mhm.
very, everything is an arm's length away. Nothing ever gets a little, you know, it gets deep enough or
Yeah,
personal enough. It's very, everybody sit up straight like we're being watched.
exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of like that out here too.
Oh, it is. I
Mhm.
think you're right. Wow, yeah. But I think like people just think of Mississippi, right?
Mhm.
And that's like one of the things, like they'll always say like Mississippi's like 50 years behind everybody. I'm like, well, kind of also, have you been to Salt Lake? Like,
Yeah.
you
Have you been to most of the country?
have you been to the most of the country is behind 50 years behind most of the
Mhm.
country. Or
It's like the
like,
country has a social media, and we have this idea that it's more progressive than it is.
I
We
agree.
think about that false facade more than we think about the reality of where we're at.
I agree. It's a
Mhm.
cognitive dissonance,
Mhm.
because this is something I've been like writing about a lot, because it's like, even in Utah, like if we want to bring it back to this kind of like more micro, right? Like
Mhm.
Salt Lake City, like lauds themselves as like this kind of wonderful, beautiful place, right? That's like super all inclusive and super, like they're doing their best to, become techie and like like
Mhm.
catch up and stuff. But then like, so if that's like the image that you hold, or the truth, I guess, that you want to create, then it's really hard to look on the flip side of
Mhm.
that in a lot of ways you're not cutting it. Like your
Yeah.
community is not cutting it.
Mhm.
So what do? You like, instead you just say like, no, that's not true. We are cutting it. Like, it's hard to say that Salt Lake City is the place, right? And then you're having like police brutality every other week, or whatever. I'm trying not to get too like political, but or like a lot of your sub communities are repressed and oppressed in certain ways, but or there's no resources for your unsheltered communities, so like, which one is the truth?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the idealism of America as a country is just perfectionism. And when things aren't perfect, there's that radical denial. And I think that's what's part of that culture that's gotten us into that mess of just avoiding things that are wrong, of denying things that are wrong, and things that are happening, and what is truth. And there's only one truth, which is very perfectionism, right? There's all of it's true. All of it's not true. All of it.
I love it. No, keep going. I love it.
All of it is what it is. Maybe not in the terms that we understand, but all of it's out there, and it's part of the truth. And the idea of perfectionism and trying to maintain a facade like that destroys a person inside as an individual and destroys a community as well.
It's too much pressure.
Yeah.
It's so much pressure. And I think like if we could start kind of like how you have done, like start with ourselves, start saying, like you said, all of this is true. Sometimes none of it's true. One day some of it might be true, and other days another part of it might not be true for me, like that's where we have to start. And then we can like then I can be in community with Jade, right? Because I've done the work that I'm doing the work that I need to be doing to accept me as a whole person, whether or not that shifts from day to day, right? Like that's all part of my story, and that's all part of who I am. And when I can come to terms with that, then yes, I can come to Jade and I could say, Jade, we're siblings, like we're in community with each other. You are my neighbor. Let's work on, let's work together, let's love on each other. Let's nurture each other. And then Jade goes to someone else, and you know what I mean? It just, and it creates this like wonderful ripple effect, right? But I think it has to start there. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I really love that you use the word sibling, because it creates that natural nurture and the love, but it also, siblings fight. Siblings aren't perfect with each other, and that sometimes, because it's not a chosen relationship, it's like a forced relationship, but it can still be the most important relationship you have.
Yeah.
And I also think that, individuality is very important. I think activists struggle with that sometimes, of the problem is so big, how can one person change anything? And that's the key, is to think about, well, what are my strengths? What do I believe in? And that have your own soul guide you to where you want to go.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to figure out what is expected of you and where you should go. Where do you feel like going?
Yeah.
What do you feel like dedicating yourself to? And use your strengths for that.
Yeah. And then that way, I think your most sincere and authentic work does come forth, right?
Yeah, authenticity.
Yeah. That's all we need.
Yeah.
And then, I guess not really in the same vein, but kind of, I guess, a similar question. What's something you know now that you either wish you could like tell your younger self, former self, or that you wish that you had known then?
I don't know. I think on the questionnaire I wrote something about you don't have to fit into a category. If you find a label that you identify with, you don't have to then become that label. You know, you don't have to be exactly what you think you are. You can just be without limits. But I think on top of that, that the where you're at isn't where you're always going to be. That it's always going to change. That definition of that level is going to change. Where you sit right now is going to change. So the environment around you is going to change. And so if it's good times, appreciate it. If it's bad times, know that it's going to go away and that things are going to get better, or at least change.
Yeah, at least change. I really love that, because sometimes, especially I think now, we were talking about this a little bit earlier too. Y'all, we had like this whole great conversation. But we were talking about, especially in these times right now, with everybody kind of being like having no choice, right, but to be like kind of glued to the constant newsreel or whatever, you know, social media chaos is going on, you know. It seems like this is like it's going to be forever, and like that this is the reality from now until eternity. And sometimes I think like, well, okay, it might be, right? Like we might just have this kind of global pandemic or whatever from now until whenever the earth is just like, I'm done with y'all, you know?
Very soon.
She's like, I've been trying to tell you and you don't want to listen. So. Like, and if that's true, then that means that we've got to make changes, right? Like, then we've got to evolve, and we've have to somehow adjust to that truth, right? Or that reality. But if it's not true, then it's going to change, you know? And we've got another chance. Who knows? You know, like, who knows which one of those is true, but
yeah. And it's I think that's why that introspection can be very important sometimes, because when things seem so big, is climate change going to ever be addressed? Is racism ever going to be addressed? Is, you know, are these things ever going to change? Are we ever going to get anywhere? And it can feel like that sometimes in your own personal journeys. Like for me, I've lost about 90 pounds.
Wow.
And that took 10 years.
Yeah.
You know, and through that whole time, I never felt like I saw any progress, because it happened so slowly.
Wow.
It happened so not forcefully. But at the same time, if I didn't change my behavior, if I didn't believe in the goal that I was going for, I never would have gotten there, and things would have changed for the other direction, right? And I think that's kind of the journey and the accountability we have to take for social justice as well. Is we might not see, you know, as people in our 30s now, we might not see the end result of our goal because it happens so slowly. But I'm excited about Gen Z. They give me life.
I'm so excited. I saw this like meme online, and it was like Gen Z, what did they say? It's like Gen Z skips 3 meals a day and drinks 8 coffees, picks up like goes to a protest, picks up a tear gas can and throws it back at a SWAT team, but be afraid to like call and make their own dollars. And I was dying. I was like, you're so right. I'm like, and I was like, I'll make it. Just let me know who I need to call, and I'll call and make that appointment for you. But it was just like talking about how fearless they are. Because you're right, they see the bigger picture, right? They see that, like, I think in a lot of ways we see that, you know, like those of us, like you said, who are in our 30s, like progress is slow, and sometimes we get maybe burnt out about it. But I feel like the Gen Zers, like, they are just like, no, like, we're not tolerating that. And however long it takes to get for this fight to be won, we're fighting it tooth and nail every single step of the way. And if that means I gotta pick up tear gas and throw it back and not eat breakfast this morning because I gotta be at the Capitol at 9, you know, like, then that means that's like what it is.
And I think that's where the open mindfulness and just the mindfulness in general comes into play, because we have to learn to accept the new ideas that come in and not be so afraid of that change. And well, we used to do it this way. This is how you do this, and that's how we get stuck.
We get stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh, you're so good. You're so good. Okay, so honestly, I can talk to you forever, right? But before I guess we kind of transition into like the closing, what's your favorite place? What's the favorite place that you've lived in?
You know, that's such a hard question. I get asked that a lot.
I bet.
People always hope it's where they're from.
If it makes you feel any better, I have no sort of attachment to that idea.
It's hard to say because I've had some very good memories and some very good, like one of my favorite running trails is actually in New Jersey.
Wow.
There's this old, they dug up where the train tracks were and they put down like a gravel sand running trail.
Wow.
And it goes for like 30 miles and you're in the pine barrens and it's just really quiet, but you still smell the ocean, and it's one of my favorite running places. But I also hated New Jersey. Or like Mississippi. I loved taking the camera out to the swamps, and I've been vegetarian for 12 years, but I did have a little bit of pork while I was in Mississippi.
Oh my gosh.
You gotta have some barbecue.
You can't not have barbecue in Mississippi. And
the open mics there, and there's so much down there that I love, but at the same time, I also didn't fit in that area as well as, you know, the liberal Yankee that I am.
Right.
And I don't know. I love the mountains out here, but the air is killing me a little bit. And there's always ups and downs, and I kind of treasure all the places that I've been. I guess I try to like the place that I'm at the most. Wherever I'm at, that's what I like the most.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I need to take a page out of that book. I do. Every time I leave Salt Lake, I'm like, why don't I just, especially like when I went to Atlanta last year, I was like, what the hell am I doing in Salt Lake? But like, this is Atlanta. This is Black Mecca. Why am I not here? And the skin, like I was like, you know, the air loves my skin. I'm a beautiful Nubian goddess. Like I was just like totally like having all of this reaction. But then I thought, like, could I really live? Like, you know, I had the opportunity to interact with like Stacey Abrams when I was there, and I'm just like, I see what's going on here, and it's like, I think that the work that I do needs to be done also in Salt Lake, right? Because Atlanta's got Stacey Abrams, and they've got like, you know, like all of these powerful initiatives. Like, let's bring some of that Nubian goddess, like let's bring her back to the desert. You know, she like the Queen of Sheba lived in the desert, so right, we'll just go with that. But let's bring her back to the desert and let's get to work here too.
Go to where she's needed.
Yeah. So that's beautiful. Just kind of like wherever you're at is where you love. I love that. I won't pressure you to sing, but I would really love if you could.
If I had my guitar, I would. Okay. It's kind of hard to do a cappella.
I understand. Do you want me to pretend to be a guitar? I'm just kidding. I'm like, bam, ba-ding, bam.
Yeah, here.
It's okay. I totally understand. But I would like to ask then, where can people find you? Find your work?
Well, I have a website, jabphotography.com.
Okay.
Or org.
JB.
Org.
All right.
And through there's my Instagram. I don't update it a whole lot.
Okay.
I don't know. I like to keep my Facebook and my personal Instagram a little more private. But
that's so understandable. But just at least where people can kind of look at your work and maybe experience you a little bit outside of this conversation. So we'll update that link in the show notes so folks can link to you and link to your work. Before we do go, I would love we were talking about this. So you kind of mentioned that you were a huge fan of X-Men, right? And so here on thanks on the podcast, it's our favorite thing to kind of gift our guest with a comic book. And these comic books are provided by Black Cat Comics, and they're specially picked and curated for our guests. And so you mentioned that you were a huge fan of the X-Men, right? And kind of that notion of like these powerful mutants who like change the world, right? And so Black Hat Comics chose this comic book specifically for you. And what it is, it's about a girl who starts to kind of, maybe she's a woman. I don't know. She's like, I don't know her age, okay? But she starts to realize something about herself and realize a transition happening not only in the world around her, but in herself. And so it's about her journey kind of understanding and accepting the power of that transition to also use that power to kind of, change the world that she lives in. And it's really beautiful. It's kind of like an Art Deco kind of art style. And so we wanted to gift this to you, and I hope you like it, and I hope you let us know like how you like it.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go home and read this.
It's called Moonstress.
Nice.
So here
it's
you
perfect. I love it.
Yeah. It looks really beautiful. I'm like, I want to be Jade because I want to get this, but I'll probably just go to Black Hat Comics and support local. But Jade, thank you so much for talking with me and sharing and being vulnerable. I know you were saying you're a bit of an introvert, but I just want to thank you so much for just kind of letting me pry into your life a little bit.
Yeah. It was more fun than I thought.
Yeah. I'm just going to take that as a personal compliment. But as always, we here at MOCHA Talk and Caffeine Dreams want to thank our sponsors so much. Watchtower Coffee and Comics, Black Cat Comics, Wasa. Can we edit this part? Watchtower Coffee and Comics, Black Cat Comics, and Rusted Box Records. Thank you so much. Oh my God.
Thanks for listening to MOCHA Talk and Caffeine Dreams. Be sure to follow us online at MOCHA Talk Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, or on our website at mochatalkpodcast.com. Special thanks to our sponsors, Watchtower Coffee and Comics, Rusted Box Records, and Black Cat Comics. We'll see you on the next episode.